Welcome back, Paul. How you
Hey,
doing?
Dave, it's been a little while.
It has been a little bit of time here, sir, but I think it's all your fault.
This feels like deja vu. Is this Groundhog Day?
Yeah, it is, right? It does feel like Groundhog Day.
It's almost like we started this without the microphones
Yeah, like we did, and then we
and
didn't.
then had to do it again, and this is,
Yeah.
we're just saying the same things again.
New camera,
New sound.
new sound.
We
It-
probably sound amazing compared to before.
compared to before, yeah. Even though I did fill up the fountain to knock down a bit of the noise, but
But
with
little
that,
microphones like this, they tend to kind of like isolate your voice pretty well.
which would be good, very good, yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's good to have you back. I did
We're
that one
back.
video without you, sans Paul, but it just wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same, buddy. So
Why would it?
yeah, I know exactly. So
So I'm real excited about your choice of cigar for
Yeah.
us today.
yeah, this
You
cigar.
surprised me with this one.
Well, I've been wanting to smoke this with you, and I figured why not? I mean, because you're always complaining. Well, we never do any Cuban cigars.
Yeah, we never do any Cuban cigars, Dave.
So
Saves them all for his own channel.
right.
What's
so
that channel called?
I guess Dave the Cuban Cigar Dude.
Dave the Cuban Cigar Dude.
Although I just did a Padron, which you didn't like. I saw you
Oh.
post on your Instagram. You did the 50th anniversary or whatever it was. You didn't like that one. You're like, it's a meh. And I was like, it's not my cup of tea because I'm not a big fan of Padron cigars, to be quite honest. But I mean, it was, worthy of a fairly
So
good,
you did
decent-
you did the hammer.
Yes, and I did the hammer
Yeah.
because that's the natural. The Maduro is
Okay.
not.
The Maduro's not called the hammer.
No,
What do they call it?
I don't.
Hammer.
I don't know.
Le hammer.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say that I didn't like it. It's this particular, whatever the particular refill, the new refills that I got it from.
Right.
It didn't taste
was
like the
lacking.
original release. Now I have two left in my humidor of the original ones with the red bands, which are the bands that you get, the red numbers,
Right.
because they're all individually numbered. The ones that you get when you buy the humidor all have red numbers on them.
Right.
But when you refill them, they have black.
Yes.
And I've smoked one of the blacks before, and I remember it being okay, but the original red was just, it was a transcendent cigar.
Really? Okay.
So good.
Well, but I think though, personally, the older that Padrones get, I don't think they age that well. Personally, I don't think they age that well because we smoked the what is it?
Oh, the Millennium.
The Millennium. We smoked the Millennium, and that was like very lacking
Nothing
after
to it.
20 years of age on
Yeah.
that thing.
Well, they're non-Cubans. They're not made to be aged.
I guess. Well, pick
It's
one.
not. Well, what is it?
So this is the Fonseca. Now I want to say Delicia or Delicia or whatever it is. So this cigar is.
Delicia?
I'll go with that because I'm so Spanish simplified. It's not even funny. So this cigar is 40 by 123 or 4 7/8 inches. And before 2002, this was actually
Well,
a machine made or hand bunched, hand finished, machine bunched, hand finished cigar.
so that's
According
probably
to
what this is.
yeah, that's according to the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Post-Revolution Havana Cigars.
That's
Which-
the MRN book.
Yeah, which I saw you got a second. You picked up a second copy.
I picked up a second copy. Sort of I mean, they're both a minor second edition, second printings, I should say.
Okay.
So they're not first editions. And I picked it up just sort of as insurance. It turned out, though, even though my first copy was in really good condition, the second copy that I bought is in even better condition.
Wow,
It's
okay.
basically perfect. So I'm happy with them.
Okay.
And now I can potentially loan one out to a friend because I have lots of friends who are interested in the book and don't have the book. It's they're hard to find.
They
Unless
are
you
hard
wanna
to
really
find.
shell out.
Yeah, like
You
like
can always go on Abe Books if you want to spend $1,000.
But
and just grab one.
I think you can normally pick them up now these days about 400, between 250 and 400, somewhere around there.
That's a really good price if you can find one for that.
Yeah, like I've seen on one of the Facebook groups where Nino or some other people will run their encyclopedia through there, and like around, it's like the average mean is about 350 to 450, somewhere in there.
Okay. Because I
depending
think
on-
I picked this one up for 200 or 250, which I thought was a steal.
Oh, that is a steal. Yeah, 200, 250, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got lucky because I picked my first one up, I think, for around 250,
Yeah.
and then the second one was gifted to me.
Well, yeah. Also, it's got some weird writing in it.
It does
So,
actually.
you never know how that's going to affect the value.
It does actually. He actually signed it and put a bunch of stuff in there, which I'm not going to get into. But anyway, it was really nice. So those of you that
Because you're
don't
too humble.
don't know what that book is, there was a fella in Hong Kong named Min Ron Ni. Well, he goes by the pseudonym of Min Ron Ni. He wrote a very comprehensive book on Cuban cigars from basically the post-revolution up to what 2002 roughly, I believe, is when. And I think there's an addendum of 2003 in the second edition. I think some 2003 stuff made it in there as well.
I think maybe even a little later, because I think my editions, the second printing, was 2005. So
Okay.
I'm sure he went as close as he possibly could
Okay.
to the publication date.
So there we go. So, but it originally came out. It was released in 2003, and then they did a second release in 2005. And people call it the Bible or whatever of Cuban cigars.
I mean, there's nothing close to it.
No, there's not.
Not even remotely.
No, there's not. There's a lot of people that have come out with stuff. I think of a lot of the stuff that people come out with. Like this one guy just came out with a book called The Impossible Collection of Cigars.
I've heard of it, and I
yeah.
think I read a little about it.
So that is more of a coffee table book, I
Yeah,
believe.
right.
He lists a lot of cigars in there, and it's a big book, and it sells for like $1,000 if
Right.
you're willing to part with that much dough for a coffee table book. I haven't had the pleasure of perusing through that book yet,
Never.
personally.
Is it Taschen? Is that the publisher that makes all those fancy coffee table books?
Asseline,
Asseline, okay.
Asseline, yeah, Asseline's the one that did
Yeah.
that. So, so I think some of that stuff is more coffee table books. Garrard does I have a Garrard book in there, which is kind of the same way. I've gotten some other books that basically they don't go into as much detail with a lot of the cigars, tasting notes, various ways to keep your cigars and everything like that. So
And then, of course, pictures of virtually every cigar.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, everything
From
that's
that period.
from post-revolution on up to like 2000. Let's just say 2003. Yeah,
Often with boxes and packaging and
yeah. And so it's an encyclopedia. So
Yeah.
those of you that don't
it
remember,
feels like a reference book.
right?
Yeah.
So those of you who don't remember the door-to-door encyclopedia, Britannica salespeople would come to your door and sell you this long volume of encyclopedias because you didn't have the internet back then. You had a book or the library that you had to go to. So that's kind of like what this is just a huge reference guide.
Right.
So anyway, all
And
right.
very well regarded, obviously, within the hobby.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, there's some contention in there. I guess originally people kind of laughed at him to
Really?
begin with. Yes, there was a lot of people that kind of laughed at him and thought this was a bunch of bunk. Because back then, people didn't age stuff. I mean, it wasn't about aging cigars. It was just about smoking them. Like I showed, what was it? James Suckling did an interview with Nick Wing where. Nick was interviewing him, and James Suckling was saying, "Yeah, I was in London in the '90s, and people, they, had this bargain bin of 1 pound smokes, and they were like the old ones, because everybody smoked fresh new cigars pretty much back then. It wasn't there was nothing about aging a cigar 10, 20, 30, 40 years at all until this book came out, the encyclopedia came out.
Well,
So
that's crazy. You and I were the ones who would have been smoking out of that bargain bin,
yeah,
like over at Warehouse.
like the warehouse.
Been like, whoa,
Yeah.
a Fonseca Delicia.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying, And, they took away the bargain bin for a minute at the Cigar Warehouse, and now it's back.
Oh, well, they probably got people started bringing in pitchforks and torches.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think that, and I don't know why more cigar shops don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
People talk about it around town. Like, people mention to me randomly, hey, I found this at the bargain bin at the warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think every shop should do that. I know if I owned a shop, I would do that because I want to turn over stock and I want to get more stuff in there because you never know what's going to be a hit with people. So, anyway.
So another interesting thing, since we're on the book a little bit,
Okay.
and since you say, it was maybe by some people not well received when it first came out in terms of its relevance to the hobby and to the industry. Before something like that comes out, a compendium, a reference book, an encyclopedia, everything is word of mouth. There's always been a little bit of cigar media, cigar aficionado, a couple of people doing videos or podcasts or whatever, that kind of thing. Very often for pay, right?
Yeah.
So subsidized by the cigar makers, so skewed in that direction.
Yeah.
This was just a labor of love, self-produced, not produced or subsidized by any company.
No, he did it on his own dime.
And I think that in any hobby, when something like that, that the Memorandi Encyclopedia gets created, it legitimizes the hobby, and it kind of sets a standard to, of the type of dialogue that you can have about cigars, particularly in this case, Cuban cigars.
Right.
And until you have that, until you have one kind of, I will say the word, although he would probably hate it, authority on the subject, it's very difficult to know exactly how much knowledge there is, how to talk about things, what the point of departure, even if you're going to disagree with what's in the book, is going to be. But now that that exists, I think that book had a lot to do with the increases in aged cigar prices that we've seen over the last 15 years.
Oh, God,
and
yeah.
the knowledge that people have about how to store them, and the fact that they age like wine and you can keep them for a really long time, and in a lot of cases they get better and better. I mean, it's a book that exists that people can go to and refer to, and it's not just word of mouth old wives' tales, which we've talked about before. There's way too much of in the cigar industry, right?
Yeah.
It reduces that down to at least a starting point of a frame of reference for everybody.
Yeah, and I guess be a little bit more scientific as opposed to using hearsay and your own opinion and making stuff up.
Which is never going to disappear.
No,
because
people make stuff up.
You have your own opinions. I have my own opinions.
Yeah.
We believe some things that are probably made up, and we believe some things that have been studied and are true.
Yeah. So, anyway, so those of you that don't know, anyway, that's the book that we're referring to. These cigars actually are from my last visit to Hong Kong, where I actually was with him.
That's where these cigars are from?
Yeah, these are actually, he keeps a small humidor at Cigarro, which is a really great lounge. It's private. I had the fortune of being able to go in there with him and smoke cigars.
Let's go now.
In Hong Kong.
Sorry, we got to turn off the video and get on a plane.
Yeah, exactly. So these are from that humidor that he keeps in there.
Oh,
so
wow.
Anyway, and I would say these are probably from the 90s, probably like anywhere between 95 and 98.
So if you're familiar with Fonseca, you know that they don't put the band on the cigar. They put the band on this little
tissue paper,
cheesecloth tissue paper thing on the outside, and you just slide the cigar out, and it's a naked cigar then. The formerly white tissue paper is now really blotchy, oily yellow because of the age of the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably see that maybe if you just hold it up. And then also the bands are comically off-center and low quality in terms of their printing, but very pretty and kind of, I would say, almost kitschy in that sort of low rent Cuban printing type style.
Well, it really keeps with the original design of this. When Mr. Fonseca actually originally designed this type of logo or band, the big F, because it was Fonseca that started the brand back in, I want to say in the early 1900s, that he wants to. Oh, yours is more yellow than mine. No wonder you picked that cigar. I always hold them up and have people pick cigars. I always want them to choose first.
I always try to pick the best one for me.
Yeah. So, because I've been accused of giving people plug cigars, which is a joke. Because
Have you ever given me a plug cigar?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
And I hope this one's not too. So, yeah. So,
Are
I
you
think
cutting
this is
yours straight cutter?
yeah.
I've got a sidecar here. I guess. I mean, we're not doing a holding them under the tap situation.
Oh, we should have.
Because they're old enough, right?
They are old enough.
If they're 90s. You want to do one? We can.
Actually, we can do puff puff pass on that one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let me.
There it is. Will this autofocus?
Yeah, I think it pretty much will.
Kind of. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So there's a wet, dripping wet cigar. Literally gonna drop some water off of it. So Dave, why don't you tell these nice people what you did with my nice 25-year-old cigar?
I ran it into the tap. So
The water in the tap water in your house?
the water trick, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not sewer water, it's tap water.
you didn't dunk it.
You know, I've had a bunch of people though that hit me up like, well, shouldn't you use like deionized special space water with, you know, a special touch of this and that in there that's, you know, totally pure and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it really doesn't matter. As long as it's, I don't think, sewer water or water with a distinct odor. Like there are some cities out there that have,
smells like a cigar.
right?
So why don't you, for the people who haven't watched your controversial video where you talk about this technique, just briefly summarize it and say where you got it from.
Well, I got it from Min Ron Nee, actually, who wets his cigars. And basically what it does is, it, especially with an older age cigar, like what we have here, it helps with the wrapper, it helps with the burn, and it just helps, I think, with the flavor. Whatever it does, I guess, reconstitutes the wrapper a little bit, makes it less dry, kind of moistens it up. And all that water is going to dissipate here shortly. Once you light up the cigar, all that water goes away.
Yeah, it's like 80% dry already.
Yeah, yeah, it does. So,
and most of the water just sheets off the wrapper anyway. It's not like it soaks it, and it doesn't really get into the foot either.
No, because you hold it with the foot down.
Right.
And I've actually had people go, "What are you doing washing the oil away?" And I'm like going, "Okay, put olive oil on your skin and then run it under water. What does it do? It doesn't wash away."
Yeah,
so it's like
it's oil. That's specifically what it does, is resist water.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, to me, the few times that I've done this, because I just don't have that many cigars that are old enough to do this.
Do that? Okay.
20 plus year old cigar. What it mainly makes me feel better about is that I'm not going to crack the wrapper when I cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That too. Yeah.
Because it gets moist and pliable as opposed to.
Yeah. Right. Dry and brittle.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, it's like it's just a win-win, I think, personally. And I guess. I mean, you follow FOH more than I do, but they actually did an experiment on FOH where they dipped cigars in the water and not in the water, and they found that the ones that they dipped in the water, the smoking experience was better. Whether or not, you know, you want to ascribe to that or whatever, who knows?
That is an aged cigar. You know, there's just there's a couple of different first puff effects that an aged cigar has that non-vintage cigars don't have. And one of them to me is it's flattened, it's smooth, it's just all floral and high notes and sweet and citrus and
yeah.
You know, and
you don't get that like pepper or that really soapy or that really young cigar kind of. I'll tell you one thing though, the finish on the palate though, there's a really heavy kind of a tobacco finish on the palate right now, which is really surprising considering that this is supposed to be a fairly mild novice type cigar too. Like a novice smoker would want to smoke a Fonseca because of the fact that it has, you know, it's not like a Partagas or a Cohiba where or a Romanion where it's got that girthiness to it, or a Bolivar. You know what I mean?
This is it's interesting and it's great. It's got very little of those high notes. To me, Fonseca, and I know you really like Fonsecas, it's taken me a little more time because it's an unusual flavor palette compared to a lot of Cuban cigars, at least to me. It's taken a little more time for me to appreciate it. This, again, there's aspects of this that taste like a 5-year-old Fonseca, but it doesn't really taste like the Fonsecas from this decade that I've smoked.
Well, that was the changeover in tobacco too, which is like around 2000. They started changing over the tobacco to the newer tobacco.
The mold-resistant tobacco.
Yeah. So, and I believe, you know, here's something that you hear, of course, like we were just talking about, where they can grow more tobacco in places where they couldn't grow tobacco before because of the newer strain. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Try to meet all that Chinese demand for Cuban cigars now.
Yeah, it's like pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. All right, so let's flip this around real quick. I just want to do a couple drags.
So you have the dipped cigar now, and I have the non-dipped. Different flavor experience.
This tastes so much better though.
That's interesting that you say that because I like this better.
That's so funny. That's so
that
funny.
that is funkier, it's deeper, and this one tastes more like the other kind of vintage cigar experience for me, where all of the low notes have kind of gone away, and you have a more delicate, refined experience. That's less refined to me, and this is more refined and a little sharper, a little more focused.
I mean, this just like has, but the way that it just seems to me, maybe our minds, they're working against us or for us or whatever it is, but it just seems like that there's more to this one.
And these are same batch, same box, same age, cared for right next to each other in the humidor, right? And a dipped and undipped version, and they are substantially different, right? Like you could taste the difference between
This
the
one
two.
tastes, I mean, this has more girth to it. Like,
Yes.
it's like, wow. I mean, there's actually a little bit of a pepperiness, a
Mhm.
slight little bit of hint of pepperiness in there, as opposed to that one.
So let's say you were lucky enough to get one old cigar from somewhere. Let's say an old Dunhill,
Mm-hmm.
right? You would say, go ahead and dip it.
Yeah.
If you just have one, dip it and smoke it, and try that experience.
Yeah, because it's not going to wreck the cigar.
Right. But it will change, potentially, will change the cigar. 'Cause
Yeah,
it definitely changed that one.
I mean, that just, to me, I mean, you like that better, though. You like that.
Yeah. I think I do. And
It's
just,
got a little bit lighter. I mean, it's got a little. But the thing is, though, with that, the finish, though, that I noticed the finish on the palate with that tobacco was a lot more prevalent. Like here, the finish seems to be a lot shorter
Mhm.
on the palate. Although when you retro it, you get more flavor, which is kind of weird,
Yeah.
you know?
Huh.
Because yeah, that finish on the palate was like definitely very heavy tobacco for me on the palate. This one, not so much. This is a less lingering finish.
Yeah, I think what I like about this is on the retrohale and on the finish on the back of the tongue, especially the sweet floral caramel flavors, almost like a deep, like a smoked bees honey kind of a flavor, which wasn't on there for me. That one had kind of smoothed out and lowered a little bit.
Yeah, where you get more like kind of like that. It's just more of a tobacco-y kind of a
little
less sweet.
earthier.
Yeah, more earthy, so to speak. Yeah, as opposed to there is a sweetness in there in this one though too
Mhm.
though. But I mean like that one definitely in the retro you get a little bit more of that sweetness I think or
So
whatever.
much honey now too.
Yeah.
It's interesting when your brain starts to lock on to a flavor.
Mm-hmm.
When you first start, trying to explore what does this taste like? How do I,
What is it?
describe this flavor?
Yeah, what is it, right?
And then of course it can and usually does change over the course of smoking a cigar. But yeah, this tastes like a stick of cinnamon honey right now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you were like, what is it? You were saying because it's almost the new year, right?
Yeah, it's what day is today? It's late, almost the end of December.
Yeah, it's the 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it 28th?
28th.
28th. Tomorrow's the 29th. Yeah, 30th is Monday. Yeah. So almost the end of the year. So because I was going to mention that you were talking about this cigar, and I'm like, kind of like the one that Kate Orsay, Slim Panatella, that you liked.
So yeah, I mentioned to a few friends of mine, it's the end of the year, and you're probably sick if you've been paying any attention to any kind of media at all. All the lists come out, right? The Cigar Aficionado Top 25 came out, and everybody has a top 10 or top 25 list coming out. Half Wheel, if they haven't had theirs already, their consensus lists, I haven't seen them yet. They will, and so will everybody else. But I was just thinking in terms of me and my friends who I smoke with all the time, and you, what like your top 3 cigar smoking experiences of 2019 were, just a personal list. Not necessarily trying to tell people what to buy or what not to buy, but just what do
mean,
you remember best?
I mean, for me, it was going to Hong Kong, and
Pretty easy for
so
you.
it
That's
wasn't.
cheating.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the memorable cigars that I smoked or whatever it is. For
Right.
me, it was the experience. I mean, that was like, going there and just being in Hong Kong and smoking all of these really insanely good cigars, like in 1994, some Monte Cristos from the 70s. What is it? The 35th anniversary Cohiba, I believe.
35th?
Yeah, the 35th, right, with the 35 on the band. And actually, that was the smoke itself was like, to me personally, but
Do you like the 1492 best out of the three
I do.
Holy Grails?
I do like the 1492 best.
And what's the third one?
Cuban Tobacco 25th.
Cuban Tobacco.
Yeah. A lot of people, especially because I was just at a HERF in Irvine called the Fall Classic, and a lot of the guys in that group of guys like the 1994. That's their favorite. But for me, the 1492 I think is my favorite, personally. So out of the three, the Holy Trinity, that's my favorite is the 1492. So, yeah.
Well, this is real good.
Okay, well, I guess we're not going to switch back.
No reason to.
Yeah, because I'm enjoying this one myself personally.
Great. Yeah, the you brought back a Quai d'Orsay Slim Panatella, which is long gone. They don't make those anymore. When did they stop making those? 02, something like that? It's been a while.
So it's been a while, yeah.
It's a really narrow ring gauge. I want to say like a 33 maybe, or even a 28.
Yeah, it's really narrow. It's more narrow than the original Lancero, right? Because the original Lancero was a 38 ring gauge, I believe.
Yeah.
And then now it's up to a 40. I think it's up to a 40 ring gauge. But originally it was a 38.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, less than that. I mean, the one that would be comparable to that would be the La Gloria Medel d'Or 4, I guess, as far as ring gauge.
4. It felt like it was even slimmer than that. It felt more like a Monte Carlo to me.
Oh, yeah. Portland Monte Carlo, too. Yeah,
But
yeah.
longer, right?
Yeah,
It was a very long cigar for its
It was like 7
ring
inches,
gauge,
7
yeah.
and something.
But those were delicious. Was that out of the same humidor that these came out?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was. Yeah,
interesting.
definitely. Yeah.
Good humidor.
Yeah, he had a bunch of stuff in there, and what was so funny too was that, because most people, when you're on social media and you flash a Cohiba, right, or
Fancy-
some kind of
fancy
regional, fancy whatever,
Limitada, regional.
yeah, well, all that stuff, people go
1492.
people go nuts, right?
Yeah.
They go nuts, and so
Yeah, it's true. You put a picture of a Cohiba on your Instagram, and then you put a picture of, an RYJ or a Fonseca or something, and it's an appreciable difference of how many people are interested in the Cohiba.
yeah, definitely, and so. That humidor that he had, there was no Cohiba in there. It was there was some Partagas in there, Fonseca, Quai d'Orsay.
Pearl Aranaga?
There was Pearl Aranaga. I believe there was Pearl Aranaga. Maybe not. I don't think that the Pearl Aranaga was in there. I think there was some Boulevard in there. There was a mixture of stuff in there, but none of it was had any second bands on it or anything
Right.
like that. And none of it was stuff that a person would go crazy for.
So, yeah, that Quai d'Orsay Slim Panatella maybe cost, that was from the 90s or,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah. So that maybe cost $50 for a box back then.
Yeah, good luck
It
getting
was
that
a
now.
cheap cigar then, right?
Yeah.
As were these. Machine bunched, hand finished, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe even less, maybe $40 for a box of 25 back then.
Probably something cheap like that.
And even for the time, it was inexpensive, and now it's a delicious smoke.
Yeah.
And it only took 25 years.
I know, right? Yeah, only 25 years.
I like to think I'm a more delicious smoke than I was 25 years ago.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wouldn't be the judge of that. So, that would be, somebody else that, anyway, but, yeah.
Pretty curveball there.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, yeah. But, yeah, I've been wanting to smoke these cigars with you for a long time. Because I got back from Hong Kong in March, and here it is December. So it's been 9 months,
Are you
basically.
going to go again?
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking either March or April. I talked with him on the phone on Christmas Day, and he's like, "You have to come back." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "My humidor's a mess again. You got to clean it up." So, yeah, but
Needs his humidor guy back.
yeah, and that's just the personal one. That's not his collection per se.
Right.
So, but he's a very humble guy too. I mean, like I would love to and people always ask me for a humidor tour and stuff like that, and it's like I feel it's like I'm just a smoker. I don't collect stuff. I mean, it's like why would you want to look at what I've got in my humidors, right? So,
You have some interesting stuff in there, though.
yeah,
Not just like this, but stuff that you buy for yourself to smoke.
I pretty much smoke everything though. I mean,
Yeah, me
I have
too.
some Bahiques from 2010 and 2011. I have some Don Candidos in there. As far as like ooh wow cigars, but pretty much everything else um, is just stuff that I buy along the way and smoke. Or I've had in there and then I'm slowly going through it and smoking it and stuff like that because I don't or stuff that I pick up from London, but I roll through that stuff. So, the Partagas Charlottes that I got from the 90s, those are almost gone. The Quintero Nacionales from the 70s, those are going quickly.
Coin stack ash.
Yeah, right? So,
Good.
but I think your humidor tour would be a lot more interesting than mine, to be quite honest. Because you have a very eclectic mix of stuff. You have a lot of New World stuff and Cuban stuff, or non-Cuban and Cuban stuff that you have in your humidors.
Yeah, I would say at this point I'm at about, I don't know, maybe 15% non-Cuban. And in my two wineadors, the only non-Cuban stuff that I can think of off the top of my head are a few Opus and higher-end Fuentes, which I love, and then a box of 3 different years mixed of the Crown Heads Las Calaveras from 2014, 15, 16.
Don't forget your Andalusian bowls.
I smoked one yesterday, as a matter of fact. So, Cigar Rights of America is an organization that lobbies for, I guess you could say, pro-tobacco laws or lobbies against anti-tobacco laws in the U.S. They have a 10-pack of cigars that they came out with toward the end of the year, which comes in a big humidified envelope with a little Boveda pack in it. And all 10 cigars are fantastic cigars.
Yeah, they're like kind of unicorn, non-Cuban unicorn stuff.
Like I've seen at least 2 different versions of it. Like even at the shop at the V-Cut where I smoke, they've got them. And one of the packs has a Opus X Destino al Siglo in it, and the other pack has the Opus 20th anniversary, the blue label, which is almost impossible to find. It's $150 for 10 cigars. They're all large cigars. They're all Toro size and larger. The Andalusian Bull is in there. The Opus is in there. There's the Padron Black is in there. There's a Diamond Crown in there. I mean, there's a lot of really great, expensive cigars, and it's $150 for 10. And part of the proceeds goes to Cigar Rights of America. And I know there are online sellers that are undercutting that price, which I'm not going to say anything against. I mean, if you can get that pack for $100, $10 for an Opus.
I know, right?
20th. The Padron Black that they have in there kicked my butt, by the way, nicotine-wise. It is a hefty smoke. If you're going to smoke one of those, eat first. It's the only way that you can get that particular Padron is in that pack. They make Padron Blacks. They're rare enough, but that particular size only comes in the CRA pack.
Okay.
And there's also a Fausto from Tatuaje in there that I think that size only comes in that pack. Yeah, it's great. I highly recommend it. But getting back to the Bull, yes, I smoked the Bull out of the pack yesterday, and I do really feel like there has been a fairly steep drop-off in quality between the one that won
The
Cigar
original,
of the Year
yeah.
and the ones they're making now. But having said that, still a huge cigar, so you get a lot of tobacco for the money, and still a tasty cigar. And it's still, if you really look for it, you can still get that brown bread molasses flavor, which
Yeah,
won
I
at the
mean,
award.
the last one that I just smoked out of a box because they just got a shipment in at the the warehouse actually. I picked one up there, and it still had that really nice sweetness to it.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, what is different about that cigar as opposed to all the other LFD stuff that I've smoked is that it's not a blow your face off cigar.
Right.
Like most of the LFD stuff is like, you know, we're gonna hit you in the lips and the mouth and the gums and the nose with like pepper and, you know, strength and Lajero.
Nicotine too, yeah.
So that one, but you know, that's something also that I found too as well, is that big, you know, the larger cigars like the A-size cigars and the big, like the diademas and stuff like that, I find that those cigars are actually milder for me than smoking like a Petit Corona or like a Corona Gorda or a Robusto. Those cigars tend to have a little bit more oomph to them as opposed to the bigger ones, and I don't know why that is, whether it's more Velato in there because they got to make it burn. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
That's largely what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like, you know, it's diluting the blend a little bit, which some people really like. And also, obviously, people really like the mouthfeel and the hand feel of a large cigar. Some people do. Personally, I mean, we've talked about this before. If I had my druthers, I'd stop at like a 50 or a 52 ring gauge and would never smoke anything bigger than that. Sometimes we have to because the cigar we want to review or try just only comes in something bigger.
Yeah, it's only a big cigar, definitely. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, and I kind of like a smaller cigar. I mean, I like a Corona Gorda.
These are great.
Yeah.
Is this a Corona, by the way? Was it a Corona when we started?
No, it's maybe it's
Petit Corona?
No, it's not even that. I think it's like some kind of weird.
It looks like 40 by 5.
Vitola de Galera. Oh, you're right, Petit Corona. No, it's standard mono. So the common name is Petit Corona, which you could call it a Petit Corona, but the Vitola de Galera has it listed as a standard mono.
Standard mono.
Which mono is hand, right?
Yeah.
Standard hand. So it's smaller than my hand.
Yeah, quite a lot.
So yeah, but that's the Vitola de Galera has it listed as a standard mono. But yeah, I mean, most people like a Hermoso number 4, right? And then you have the Robustos, right? A lot of people lump those in with just a Robusto. Like a Hermoso number 4 is a 48 ring gauge. A Robusto, a typical Robusto is 50 ring gauge, right? Somewhere in there.
By 5.
Yeah, 50 by 5. But the Hermoso number 4 is a smaller ring gauge, and I think it's a little bit shorter on the end too, like 4 7/8, maybe 5, somewhere around there. So, but the common names seem to be more prevalent than the Vitola de Galera because there's so many different things in the Vitola de Galera. So, but they actually, I think with the K d'Orsay, did they not make a new size, or there was something like that where they actually made a new size of cigar with that?
You mean recently or over?
I think the new K d'Orsays, I think that's a new.
So there's
I'm not
3
sure.
now.
Right.
There's the Corona Claro, which is the newest of the 3, and then they came out with the 50 and the 54 when they first, revamped the brand a couple of years ago.
But I think the Vitola, in the Vitola de Galera, like that cigar didn't exist up until it may be K d'Orsay, it may be something else, but anyway, there are some new ones that they're creating because of the fact of the public clamoring for larger and larger ring gauge cigars, longer cigars.
Yeah.
To do that. So.
And you're referring, by the way, to the Cuban Cigar website.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally CubanCigarWebsite.com.
Yep.
He does a really good job of keeping up to date, and as a matter of fact, the guy who edits the Cuban Cigar website and created it,
Alexander Groom. Well, Alexander Groom didn't create it. Alexander Groom took it over from, gosh darn, I can't remember the guy's name that actually started it.
Oh.
But Alexander Groom is now the curator of the.
There's a few people out there who are screaming that name at their computers right now. They're like,
maybe.
No.
Yeah.
But anyway, Alexander does a really good job of even keeping up with ongoing forum conversations about things, because you never know where information is going to come from. And sometimes, there are lots of people out there who have connections, or they have a box that nobody else has, and they just know what the fact is. Sometimes you'll put out a question and one person will answer, and they'll say, this is the answer and this is how I know why, and then they'll update the website according to that information. Like recently, in the last year, people had been wondering for a few years, where are the La Gloria Cubana MDO number 2s, right? because nobody had seen a box after I think 2016, maybe even earlier.
Okay.
And they found out that they have been not shadow discontinued, but like officially discontinued. So now on the Cuban Cigar website, even though Habanos never made an announcement that said no more MDO2s, they've updated it to say that it's a discontinued cigar as of I think 2016.
Okay.
So you won't see any more of those. So now La Gloria only has one lonely little MDO4 regular production cigar, and of course a ton of
Yeah,
regionals.
regionals. They do a bunch of regionals for that cigar. Definitely. That type of, that brand, that marca.
What are you getting flavor-wise in changes now that we're nearing the halfway point here?
This one, it's still got that really nice tobacco, clean tobacco finish on there. It's got that little bit of a pepper. It's got some of that sugary sweetness in there as well. But the finish on the palate is still kind of like a medium finish. Not like that. Like that finish on that one was pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm getting. It hasn't really done a lot of changes. It's still kind of the same type of cigar right now. I'm just starting to get into the second third.
So this has it's if anything, there's more to it now. It's a little drier on the palate than it was when it started, and it's got a lot more baking spice going on. I would say that the number of flavors has expanded. It's lost a little of that caramel honey sweetness, but still really great, and again tastes more like a typical vintage cigar compared to the dipped version.
And what's really strange too is the fact that this is supposed to be like a really mild cigar, and it's not striking me as a super mild cigar. It's actually gotten more body to it, I guess, or where you want to, it's got more body to it.
So people talk about the cigars from the 90s and earlier as having been much more potent and strong, fuller body than the Cuban cigars that are now making now. A, partly because they went through a couple of different versions of strains of tobacco to be mold resistant and also burnable, and B, because there's a sense that they, in the 2000s, Habanos has been trying to make Cuban cigars more accessible to more people to try to expand their customer base, right? If you get really potent cigars and somebody tries a cigar for the first time and it's too powerful for them that it turns them off, but something milder is going to be more accessible. So maybe at least a wider range of body from like medium minus to even light body all the way up to something full bodied, whereas before in the 90s everything was kind of more full bodied. So if they were to make this cigar today, and they make similar sizes, I don't know if they make this exact size now, it probably would be quite a bit more mild than this because the tobacco is different, and part of that is deliberate.
Sure. Okay.
So this might have been a mild Cuban cigar in the 90s, and there were much more strong Cuban cigars in the 90s. And so its reputation is the same if you compare it against other cigars of its day,
Oh, I see.
or
what
other
you're getting
cigars
at, yeah.
of today. But today, it's actually, like you were saying right now, it's still a pretty full-bodied, medium plus Cuban cigar.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking it's supposed to be lighter, whatever, blah blah blah. But I've had like other cigars that are like 30 years old and stuff like that. Like I smoked a La Corona. I forget what the size was, but it was a similar small size like this, and that thing was just like, whoa, god dang, man, there's a lot to that cigar on that La Corona, and it wasn't supposed to be that. I mean, it's 30 years old. Like, I don't know, it's weird how things happen like that, and on the non-Cuban side or New World side, it's different, and I don't know whether what causes that or whatever. I don't know.
Should we try switching off and see if there's a difference?
Yeah.
I'm almost at the halfway point here. Yeah, we're smoking about the same speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. This feels firmer than that cigar now. And maybe I've been smoking it a little faster and it's kind of mushed up a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's like way lighter. I mean, that thing is like, it's almost like two different cigars,
It's amazing.
right?
They're so different.
I mean, they're like, this is like light. It's like this one's kind of like, I got little like cigar gnomes like dancing in my nose, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? And that one's just like, I've got cigar slam dancers,
Trolls.
like, yeah, cigar trolls, just like, you know. I mean, it's completely different. I mean, it's just like, this is like more of light and effervescent, and like to your point, you know, and that one is just got that kind of heft to it, which is really bizarre.
It really does.
Right? And I don't know, maybe the two, they didn't seem different. I mean, but you never know.
Right. You never know what's the construction wise, what's in there.
What, you know, they could have
Somebody
been,
forgot a Lajero leaf or added a Lajero leaf.
yeah,
and-
whatever. But it's definitely, they're like two different cigars right now.
But also, by the way, for a machine bunched, hand finished cigar, great construction.
Well, and they've aged well too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, you know, say machine made cigars suck and they're terrible and you should never buy machine made cigars. You should only buy handmade cigars. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I would beg to differ with that.
Are they short filler? It doesn't feel like it.
No, I think it's just, no.
Yeah, because I'm not getting any little bits of tobacco. The ash is
No.
hanging on really well.
No, it's definitely
Seems
not like
long-
smoking a
long filler.
Quintero.
Right. Quintero.
Yeah.
You are Mr. Quintero.
It's a good cigar.
What is there a particular size of Quintero that you like to smoke? Because I know you smoke a lot of them, and it's an easy cigar for people to buy and age, right? Because you could spend $100, get a couple of boxes, stick them in the back of your humidor, and then really experience an aged
Really
cigar. in
forget
a few
about 'em,
years.
yeah. I like the Brevas. The Brevas come in a little paper box and then they're wrapped in aluminum foil, paper with aluminum
Ah.
foil on the outside, so they're sealed up.
Hmm.
And as far as it goes for aging on that cigar, I think the Brevas are probably, you know, one of the ones that I would like. I like the best of the Brevas.
How long would you age it for if you were to put it away before you broke it out?
I'd say starting out at 5 years.
5. And you
That's-
don't have to have a lot of room because it's also not.
No,
a big
it's
bundle.
only this big. I
Yeah.
mean, the box is only that big. So, you know, between 3 and 5 years would be a good start.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to be able to just lay one aside for 20 years and just see how that goes out. But I think that the blend on that cigar, I think, is a little bit more girthy compared to the other Quinteros.
Mhm.
As far as just like an everyday Quintero smoke, the Favritos, I really like that kind of. It's like a short Robusto kind of a size cigar, a petite Robusto. But you know, I like those. Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of I would say if I were to choose a cheaper end Cuban cigar, I really like the Jose Piedras with some age on them. I smoked one yesterday. I just got a fiver from somebody online not long ago, and I smoked my first one yesterday, and it's just delightful. Now that is a short filler cigar, and you definitely, you know, you got to ash it, you know, at the half-inch mark. You're going to get some little bits of tobacco in your mouth, but man, Cuban tobacco plus age. It doesn't matter what the tobacco is. Is it a long filler? Is it short filler? Is it machine made? You know, once you put a few years on them, it was a wonderful cigar and cheap.
Yeah. But a lot of people love that Reserva. And personally, I think the Limitada 2000 is a better cigar. Personally, and I actually enjoyed that cigar a lot. Which Partagas cigars to me are a bit boring, and I'm not a big fan of the Cuban Partagas, which is definitely, I guess, blasphemy because every Cuban smoker has Partagas in their humidor.
Well, look, I mean, I'm not one of the people who has D4s. I don't actually think I've ever bought a box of D4s or D5s. I've bought some E2s in the 5-pack, the little wooden gift pack of 5. And I've had some really good ones, and I've had some that are kind of leave me wanting and not wanting to have spent the money. But I've also had some 898s that just blew my socks off.
But
Love the 898.
Once again, a thinner ring gauge cigar. That's a Lonsdale, right? I believe that's a Lonsdale. And so, yeah, there's just a little bit more to that. And actually, the cigar that I like that's a Partagas that I can smoke is that Presidente, which they're really hard to
Oh.
find.
Yeah, I've had really weird experiences with the Cuban Salomon size, except for Quaba, which also always seems to smoke fine. Like the Partagas Salomons, there's a couple of different sizes they've been making over the last few years, and I have plug issues with them a lot of the time.
Well, the Presidente is a Figurado, definitely, but it's only like, it's not like a big one. It's probably about 6 inches, maybe, somewhere in there. It's a Figurado. And so it's a smaller ring gauge. And that cigar, I like that. I like, out of the Partagas, I like the newer Partagas, I like smoking those. 898s aren't bad. That E2, I mean, was like...
898s aren't bad. Come on.
The
It's one of their prestige cigars.
I think the Lucy is actually more of a...
Well, the Lucy is a double Corona. They're
Yeah.
huge. They come in a 50 cab for what, $800, $700, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but
But
to
the 898s are like $450 for 25. Like that's quite a bit more, per cigar.
hmm Yeah, I mean the 898. Like I said, I like the Presidente. I mean, I'm Perfecto challenged, right? So like any kind of a Perfecto cigar, I have a hard time with it. You're supposed to just light the tip and puff, 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 and get it going. A lot
You
of times,
cut them off.
A lot of times I'll have to do that.
I've started doing that because when you did it the first time, I was like,
Blasphemy.
well, it's a little blasphemy, but it's also brilliant because you don't have to worry about, like, is that little nipple going to fully light? Am I going to get a good light? And you always end up having to relight it.
Yeah, not only that, like a lot of times with me, it'll tunnel.
Oh.
So it'll start tunneling, right? Because you're just lighting that little tip. So it like goes into the cigar, and then it starts tunneling, and then next thing you know, you got a tunnel like about a half inch down the cigar, and then no burnt tobacco, and it's like,
Where did you pick that tip up from of cutting off?
I just started doing it myself.
Circumcising your
Doing it.
perfectos.
Yeah, I was like, I got so fed up and so pissed off at like, ruining the first bit of the cigar. It's like, well, I'm ruining it anyway, so why not just like snip a little bit off and go from there?
Well, that's one of those areas where like it pays to not always just be a purist and to always do what you're supposed to do, which is just light the end of the cigar and just shortcut it a little bit so that you have a better smoking experience. Like, do what feels right to you, and sometimes you're going to come up with a great idea like that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, like I said, I cut that off. And originally I think it was done because when you're smoking outdoors or whatever, you can just light the tip with a match, and then it gets going and you don't have to worry about it, so to speak. But now we have torch lighters and all that kind of stuff. And so, to me, just cutting it off, I can just toast the foot and call it a day, right?
So non-Cuban cigars that are common, relatively common, that people might have that issue with, the Hemingway Signature Series from Fuente, also some Opus, I think, have that as well. Like the Toros the Bull, those like super high-end $150.
Yeah, you want to ruin a
cigars have
cigar
that.
like that, right?
Yeah, just snip
Just a little
quarter
bit.
inch off and
Yeah.
and go gangbusters.
Yeah, definitely. So and there's a lot of people also that are experimenting with like, there's a guy who's like I forget what the guy's name is, but he did all these scientific experiments or whatever where he won't cut the tip that you put in your mouth, the head of the cigar, and he'll toast the bottom of the foot.
Right. It's a French name, and it's called the something method of
Right.
lighting.
And I've
so
read a
you
little
you torch the cigar before you cut the head, and then after you've toasted it for a while, you just cut it and smoke it.
Right, and I believe you blow out first, and then
So you purge and then you smoke.
yeah. But according to them, the fact is that when you have the head open, that smoke and everything is all the
Draws the fumes and the heat into the body of the cigar.
the impurities or whatever into the body of the cigar, and it
Yeah.
creates a worse
That
smoking
seems
experience.
light. I mean, I get it. I get the idea of it. It seems a little cute. Like a little too much. Like, it's still a cigar. Like, just smoke your cigar.
Yeah,
But maybe he's right.
I mean, people freak out when I put a cigar in the water too,
True.
and they're like, "Why are you doing that?"
I guess if he is having a good experience with that, and I think we should all try that. I've certainly tried it. I haven't
I have
really
too.
necessarily noticed a difference. But how many cigars are you going to smoke in your life? was trying to estimate the other day. I smoked back in the 90s, and then I took kind of a break, and I really picked it up again in about 2013, and I probably have smoked 2,000 to 3,000 cigars in my life, I estimate. So if I smoke for another 30 years, how many cigars am I going to smoke in my life? 20,000 cigars, maybe, something like that. Try all the different stuff. Anything that you hear about, even if it sounds crazy, like taking a precious 20-year-old, 30-year-old cigar and putting it under the tap in your sink, try it once. See what happens.
Well, it's better to do that than have contempt prior
Right.
to investigation,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, so, I mean, people will like go, that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. Have you tried it? No,
Mhm.
I haven't tried it. So, yeah, you can't have contempt prior to investigation.
You should even try a Gurkha
I've
before
tried,
you decide that they're garbage.
I've tried quite a few Gurkhas, you know, and to me, it's not my cup of tea, but, you know, Perdomo is the same thing, right? I've smoked quite a few Perdomos. A lot of people are crazy about Perdomo cigars.
Yeah.
And actually, I was watching, because Nick Perdomo does a really good job of, he does all these videos on how they age the tobacco and what they do in the bales and all the sorting and the quality control and all that kind of stuff. I actually went on YouTube and watched all that stuff, and he does a fantastic job with his quality of his cigars and everything like that. It's just the flavor profile's not my cup of tea, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you should try everything, you know? I mean, I even smoke Iron Horse. You probably don't even know what an Iron Horse is.
I can tell you I haven't smoked an Iron Horse,
Well, my buddy,
so I therefore don't have an opinion on it.
so the original Smoking Gorilla Lounge was in Eric's house, and there was a guy named Big Mike and Donnie.
Oh my God, how many Big Mikes are there in the cigar business?
Oh my God! Well, Big Mike is just the guy that he's just big guy, and because we call him Big Mike. So
They're all called Big Mike for that reason.
yeah, right. It's always like a lumberjack looking guy, like Paul Bunyan. So, but they go online and they go for the little cigar auctions or whatever. They have all these clear outs of these seconds and all this other kind of stuff.
Oh, like Cigars International, the CI auctions?
Yes.
Where you get the bundles for like
Yes.
$40.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Mike and Donnie would, you know, go crazy and spend like about $400 and get like 10,000
Fill a
cigars
humidor.
and
Yeah.
fill a humidor up with cigars. And one of the ones was an Iron Horse. They put a band called Iron Horse on there. So Mike, and I know you're watching this, Mike. So, but I mean, actually, that cigar, in the beginning, it wasn't that bad of a cigar. It's Maduro cigar, whatever, blah blah blah. I don't know what the tobacco was or whatever, but I mean, after about the first third, it really starts to become very girthy and very harsh and kind of a bit tannic and bitter, but still.
It's funny you say that because that makes me think of back in the days when Reddit, our cigars on Reddit used to be a thing. I mean, I know it's still a thing, but like they can't do any sales. They don't really. It lost a lot of viewership when Reddit, like a lot of platforms, cracked down on tobacco and cigars and all that kind of discussion. There used to be a lot more going on there, and the big joke cigar on Reddit back in the day was always the Ron Mexico. Did you ever smoke a Ron Mexico? It was literally like 25 Ron Mexicos for like $20 or something, right? It was and it had a little stereotypical. I think he had a sombrero on and was smoking a cigar, you know, on the label, and it was the joke cigar that everybody always made fun of. And like if you liked somebody but you wanted to play a prank on them, you'd have a bundle of Ron Mexicos sent to their house. You'd find their address and like prank them by sending them that. So
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Iron Horse maybe in the same.
Oh yeah, definitely the
same
same
level.
ilk of cigar. So, all right, so we're pretty much wrapping this thing up, I think, right? So,
Still good, but I'm nubbing mine, and you're pretty close on yours. Has it changed at all? Does it still feel like that lower, fuller, funkier flavor?
yeah, and then it's got that like kind of an herbaceousness toward the back end here. There's definitely an herbaceousness that's come up. So,
Yeah, this too. Even a little bit of kind of a mentholy, minty quality.
yeah,
At the end.
yeah, and the thing is, these are supposed to be a bit sweeter, and the sweetness was there, like kind of in the beginning, but it really has.
First third.
Yeah, it's kind of like done a different turn and become, kind of like more of a tobacco finish on there with, like I said, this herbaceousness back on the back end.
So if people wanted to get a hold of some of these, they'd probably have to go to Mitchell in the auction and just kind of like take their chances, or it's very unlikely you would see something as old as this in like Online Humidor or one of the normal places.
Some of the Facebook groups too, they kind of
Facebook
run
groups?
stuff through and everything like that. But yeah, but I think the most cigar smokers today though are really kind of chasing after all the regionals. It's kind of like a puzzle, right? They're like trying to have every single regional from every
The collectors.
yeah, the collectors kind of a thing. And people that are kind of like baseball cards were in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, where they're trying to buy stuff, let it appreciate, and then flip it
Hmm.
for stuff. So I think a lot of people are doing more of that now.
Or Magic cards are now. Those Magic the Gathering. Did you ever play that?
Mm-mm.
Like back in the 90s?
So that's another one.
Same type of deal, collectible thing. Comic
Exactly.
books.
Yeah. Well, comic books have really taken a fall, but like anything else, I mean, things kind of circle back or whatever it is. So, but yeah, as far as it goes, I mean, thumbs up on this thing. I really think it's a thumbs up. It's not a sideways or a thumbs down.
Oh no, thumbs up from me, definitely.
And it was
Great
definitely
cigar, and thank you.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank our patron.
Min
for
Ron
these
Me,
cigars.
yeah, for this cigar. So, yeah. Anyway, guess that's about covers everything, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So we're out of here, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, guys.